Dynasty here. I had a bit of a panic because it just turned into 3 o'clock all of a sudden, and I was not set up and ready. But technically still within the 3 o'clock to 3:01 margin, so I'm going to call that on time. How's everyone doing today? I haven't actually got the chat up yet, so let's do that first thing. And that way... See, the problem is I can't find it. Let me see if I can just go to my channel here, dashboard. There we go, and content, live. I got my stream here, and I just want to go to my control room. All right, now I've got it up. I can see the chat. Hey, Rick, Tamsin, that lasted summer flange, Anders, and of course, hopefully there should be a couple of other people popping in as well. In the background, we do have Albin, who's been hard at work this week, working on the Gary Bath, which is very, 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 very close. It is taken a couple of weeks to get into place, and we're both learning from the process. I'm learning that Albin doesn't automatically know exactly what I want just because I say something. And Albin is also learning things, I think.
Yes.
So it's a process. So you guys caught me in the middle of something here. So what are we going to be looking at today? Well, mostly we're going to be focusing on the Odyssey. I used the cheeky tip from Martin from Wintergarten, who said, make sure you've got exclamation or question marks on your YouTube videos. So we're trying something a little bit different. The thing is, we're at the stage where the Odyssey, which is a brand new ship we're working on, I know it's based on the Odyssey, on the Chimera class, but in all honesty, it's a different platform. It's almost everything is completely redone. Almost like Starship The Next Generation when we revisited old tiles. And so this is just from the hangar. I thought this was a more solid piece than it actually is. So I'm just going to quickly select the relevant parts. And we're going to bind them together. Because what we're doing now, we're at the stage of the process in getting a ship ready, and this might be slightly interesting to some people. I know there's some creators here, where we've moved over from the concept phase, which is what we've got on this side, to the fully printable side of things. So I'm just going to kill deck 2, and we should just add a couple items here to deck 2. There we go. So let's add those to deck 2. Deck 2. And yeah, we've got these pieces that we're actually working on now. I'm not going to remove them. But all of the items you can see here on the first, what I'm calling C deck. And you can actually see in the ladder wells now, it's marked C. So we have that. We have, yeah, the lower deck. There are a few changes, and now some of these changes were not the intent that I had when I started out. Okay, so this is meant to be a massive, 80 centimeter long, a 2.5 foot, 28 millimeter scale modular starship. And this is the lower deck of it. Each of these items can be printed as an individual tile, like we have here, for example, the heat power cluster / fold drive that's sort of like being tested for printing. I don't have that on the printer yet, but I have been printing some things. And the printed things I can show off now. In fact, I'm going to need Albin to help me out in a second because I want to show off his stuff and I forgot to grab it. But here we have the front deck, or the front of deck C rather. I don't actually have the floor tiles in yet because I haven't printed them. But the machinery here in the crawl space, you can see the new modular way that we're building out the bulkheads. So you can swap out, change, like even the top here. So much more modular. much more print friendly. All of this prints without supports. And we now have the forward sensor, which uses the new spider crab features, so that the sensor can actually tilt and move from side to side. It's kind of hard to see here. Maybe I can... I've got it off angle now. Sorry about this. So yeah, it can move. It can be directed up and down. I haven't tested it yet, but there is a... what am I thinking? There is actually a function there with... Sorry, not a function. I'm trying to say that the glass screen is ready to go. So I need to test print that, and I am going to test printing it. We may have some other solutions, but the one thing I've been really doing in the last week is realizing how close the 22nd actually is and starting to panic and stress. And stress did not lead me into good places last year. Technically on the books we had our best year ever as far as like our revenue was concerned. But we did spend all of that and then some more. So we didn't start the year in a good place, but we're building back towards stability now. And that's also why we've set these hard deadlines on when things are coming out. So right now, the Odyssey will be done in time. And the goal is to have this fully 3D printable with instructions by the 22nd when we launch. The Argo, which is a variant of this, which is smaller, probably is going to be something that comes out like a month afterwards. I'm not sure. Maybe we will scrap it all together. I'm not entirely sure about that. But then, yeah, I really want to show off Albin's hard work. So this, you can come and stand in the background if you want, Albin. So this is the Gary Barth prototype. The guns on it at the moment are just recycled from existing weapons. It's going to have its own more anime-style guns. But you can kind of see, we can open up the cockpit and you can see it's got a captain miniature inside. The cockpit itself is a separate piece, so you can easily paint it. The engines have been recycled from the Spider-Bug, so they're omnidirectional. Sorry, not multi-directional. And yeah, there's a lot of nice features and solutions that he's done. You got your micro missile launchers on the side. That's what these things are. He wanted to keep adding detail. I'm like, no, we're done. We're done. Which is great because it's not a bad thing. But yeah, so this, we would expect probably you will see this on my mini factory on Monday or Tuesday. Yeah. So we did a couple of solutions where the landing gear is actually built in.
Yeah, it feels really solid. I think I don't really like it how it just stands.
Yeah, I don't know. This was meant to be slightly more of an alien ship. It's like more influenced by Zentradi design, or maybe the bad guys from Yamato. I keep forgetting their name. But yeah, I like the look of it. A lot of people, considering the fact that this is known as the Toad, I think it's coming out quite well. I really wish my camera would focus on it, but we'll be posting some pictures and that. Thank you, Albin.
Thank you, man.
He begged me to come up and get to stand in front of you guys and be honored for his hard work. So yeah, that is the Gary Barth, scheduled to come out on Tribes on Monday or Tuesday. When it comes to the maps, I don't know about updates at the moment. I have been pretty bad about communicating with Dalton. He was meant to have some stuff ready to go on the weekend. And I've just now realized I really didn't talk to him. So I probably need to do that briefly after the stream. So today is all about this progress of making stuff printable. So what is this process exactly? How does it work? Am I crazy? Yes. But what are our goals here? What are we trying to achieve? Okay, so like I mentioned, we have this very messy scene at the moment because you've got the parts on deck A, which I've not even touched. You can see I've got the partitions. We were working on those last week. We've got the partitions in place. These are mostly solid and printable. It's just a case of we haven't put the slots in the walls. You can see that the bulkheads now have slots, just like on some of our other ships. And the idea here being that we could actually put in stuff like spotlights or a gangway or all kinds of things we open up potentially. Like, for example, we do have an issue. I'm probably not going to do a huge amount about it. Of course, things are slowing down slightly now because autosaver's on. And we can actually turn off our render frame there. So you can see this is a right mess at the moment. But basically, the objects on the left of us here are completed, finished objects. And the objects on the right have yet to be processed. Now, there are quite a number of the ones on the right that are fully printable. It's just, I'm trying to go through, and if you like select most of the whole here, you can see on the right there is a naming convention that follows what they're named in the folder when we export them. All of this is a process. But yeah, generally a mess, and a part of this is just because I don't have, let's see, I need to delete that layer. I don't have everything ready to go. But we could review real quick what has changed here. And again, these pipes are just for rendering. We're not going to have this geometry. You can see what kind of a mess it is, right? We're not going to have that as the geometry. My plan is that you will use some of these. And again, I'm going to have to switch the camera up. These are available all over the world. They're just hair ties, thin ones. This is a trick I learned when we were looking at doing the scenery for, our pitch videos. Just grab a bunch of hair ties. They're really cheap. I think these are like 40 crowns, so like less than $4. And you just cut them in half and they become your cables. It's like, I love having as much as possible be 3D printable, but it doesn't make sense. And you could easily change the orientation of the way you want the cables, extend them. Just, I need to refine plugging these in. You can kind of see here that we have these little holes. So the idea is that you would just cut and then stick in there. I don't know if you'd have to glue something or if we need an additional component. It needs to be tested, and it might not make it to version 1. And that's one of the things I want to bring up. We have a couple of issues, like here, where there are certain items that are actually hidden behind doorways. And I need to make decisions. We're scrumming it at the moment. So I don't know if people are aware of like project development, but there are a couple of different methods. Scrum is a variant of Agile, where basically you would have a project and you break it down into features of the project, and you basically make lists of, must have, good to have, and then like wish list. And basically we're at the process where if we're going to make the 20-second deadline, we just need to focus on the good must-haves first. So it is not necessary right now to do a different door frame because technically this all fits, right? This can be printed and kept where it is. However, as soon as a stretch goal, we may do new bulkhead inserts with variant doors that, tidy that up and make it look a bit cleaner. Because, ideally, I'd love to make things as detailed as they are in here, but we're running low on time and we need to get a product to market. And, during the process of the campaign, we have time to iterate. But the idea being that, these sorts of things where we might make improvements, this bulkhead insert is going to take 2 or 3 hours to print. It's not going to be a case of you need to reprint everything. And the whole strategy we have for building this ship in this sort of different, applying the new methods that we've learned over the years is super important. So you can see, again, last time we didn't have any machinery here for the sensors. So this is very simple. It actually goes together really nicely just from this ball and socket joint. I can grab the two halves. So this just has an insert that sits between part A and part B on the other side. And it works really, really, really well. So I'm very happy with that. And it's quite a simple setup. It just completes the ship. You can see these are actually, we're going to hold the plastic in place here with these sort of half clips that we've used like on the Type S and the Beowulf and whatnot before, in areas where we don't want to use a full clip. So this, I'm aiming to make all of the dome parts actually be separate components, so you could print them on an FDM printer if you wanted to. We may get to a point where we talk about other options, but I think the main thing is just providing some basic geometry. Anything else that's glass, that's square, and the idea is that you would just cut it out from existing hard plastic that you get in packaging. So let's have a look at some of the questions that have popped up. Let's see. There could also be a cargo gantry to lift up some ship parts for maintenance. Yeah, there's lots of possibilities to attach things. That song is fire. I'm guessing that was from earlier. Funky Fresh Rabbit. What? Okay, no, I've got no idea what's going on there.
They were going to go with a color scheme.
I
think it's like green, red, and yellow or something.
Right. That sounds, schizophrenic. Let's see. Mutants, aliens, and toads beware. That's okay. Right. Let's see.
Asking though what the couplers for the cables
for the end of the hair tie. It might be possible, but I don't know if it's necessary yet. And plug and play cables. I mean, I don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion that it might be kind of like, you know how a shoelace has like tape around the end? It might be a case if you just get some sticky tape on the end of the cables to sort of like make it sit a little bit better or something like that. I don't know. I don't like using non-3D printed methods, but I feel like this is so cheap and so commonly available, and it makes a lot more sense than, you technically could just use yarn or something, really. But the idea being like the flexible cables is better than having, like we've done cables before and they snap very easily. They're hard to print. You usually get a lot of print issues with them. Let's see. Check out when they introduced the Scrum Certified Agile Master. I mean, one of the benefits of 3D printing is that we can iterate as well. I would be okay with a version 1.1 upgrade pack later on, perhaps on the tribes. No, Ruka, it's not going to be necessary. It's stuff that we can do during the actual frontier. Because during that time we'll be doing sorry, getting a dry throat again. During the campaign, which we might run for either 21 days or 28 days, maybe 30 like a full Kickstarter we used to do. That's the period during which the funding contributes to stretch goals, otherwise known as unlocks on frontiers. So during that time, we're just doing a pre-visualization of what those stretch goals might look like, but we're not saying this has to be released immediately. It can be released in the months following. So during that first month, after the initial release of 1.0, we might do the 1.1 version, but it will just be a free upgrade, the same way that a lot of the files that we've gone back and fixed better. Like now, I did actually go back to the underside here because I was not happy with the way that the support rods were printing. This right here was too thin. So we actually, you can see now, this used to continue on all the way to the edge here, or rather this was pushed back a little bit more to the right, so that this 45-degree angle basically started here and went in that direction. So just by making it come down a little and then out, we bought ourselves some room. there's no print failures with these as far as I know. Actually, I need to test print them. So we do need to I do iterate, but these are fully compatible with the Chimera series. And one of the stretch goals I want to have is basically implementing the Odyssey's bulkhead system and the support rod system, so it can be implemented in any Chimera-based ship. And that would be a stretch goal, which is free to Odyssey owners, so they get more flexibility with how they can build out their Odysseys, I guess. But a free upgrade for Chimera users. And in this case, I just mean we go back into the old Chimera files and we offer these as like an alternative part. So that doesn't cost us very much. It's a stretch goal, but also a way to reward people that have supported us in the past without asking them to support us in the future. Or maybe they'll, pledge at a lower level. We can talk a little bit about pricing at the moment. So I think the Odyssey itself is set for like 35 USD. The Argo for I think about 25 or 20. And then we have all in at 60, which includes new Captain miniatures. There's additional poses of Captain Freya. We might have a surprise for an alternative Captain, although we're not really going to charge for that. I think it'll be a stretch goal. We have some new, some additional alternatives and some cooperations and collaborations. That Blasted Camouflage is making us a nasty beastie that can run around in the vents. Papsicles also is going to repose some of his aliens so that they can crawl in the vents. Kaishinenku is doing a new scientist miniature in 5 or 6 poses for us as well. And then we will also have complete packs of... We've done all this iteration on the crawl spaces, so I'm calling this crawl space... crawl space is TNG, right? So these are fully compatible with the TNG tiles. And you can kind of see some on deck too, because we've actually used the TNG tiles in combination with a TNG version of our hangar tiles. So it's kind of a mix here, right? So these are in 2 halves, just like the rest of them. So there'll be a complete pack where there'll be more options that are not even used in this package. For example, sort of like wider rooms, even more features so you can customize it, and it can be a standalone pack. So if you just want elements of that, it makes sense. So I'm all about like not punishing past backers just if they're not interested in this particular offering. I don't know, sometimes I might be a little bit too generous, especially considering where we were at the end of last year economically. If you guys want to support us so that we can actually continue doing what we're doing, that's wonderful. I want to make it worth people's while. But then of course the other thing too is, did I mean for this ship to be basically a rebuild of the Chimera? I mean, I've worked 6 weeks on it, so it's very, very far for 6 weeks using the base, but like there is almost no parts that are new. Like all the base tiles, these are oh boy, they don't match up completely. There's one here that's a bit of a misfit. I need to change these that tile right there. See, the direction of the diagonal's wrong, so we just need to rotate that 90 degrees. Okay, my OCD feels better. Yeah, so we were trying to standardize everything. The new ladder wells, which have markings, the functional sliding level airlocks, basically. All of the crawl space functionality, hatches that open up, allowing your crawl space access and that sort of thing. It's really been a lot of fun to work on, but the only thing I think that is actually left untouched might be these side weapons from the stretch goals from Chimera. Oh my god, I think that actually might be true. Oh, maybe the doorways. Okay, so this is really hard to see what I'm working on with the layout because of, I'm in the middle of moving all the floors and everything. And we don't have the deck 2 hull on there. So my idea was you have this foyer that you come in because if you're thinking of, like, here's the main airlock, you come in here. If you've got borders on the ship, we're going to have an armory right here, although it's really just a weapons locker. It's not very big. You can see the doorway there. And I kind of like the way these partitions look. It's quite functional. Interesting as far as the geometry is concerned. We looked at the test prints and these come out all right. The test prints almost look even more interesting because of the way it slices. So I was going to put the galley here in its own little room. You would come off here in the hallway. Here would be a main crew cabin. There's actually, you can kind of see from the freshers here. So this is where you would have, like, I think there's 6 or 8 crew sharing this room. The thing is, and this is just a mock-up of the galley, it's not finished, because my process is just go through one level at a time and make everything printable. So a part of making deck 2 printable is going back and actually picking what's going to be in the galley, because this is just the old file. We're going to have more like a proper kitchen in there. But what I'm thinking now is actually that we make the galley be a little smaller and fit into this square here, and have this be just a little bit more open with the seating. This has always been designed to be a bit of an island because it has storage built in. So we might do something with that. One thing that has really been bothering me lately is that these corridors kind of just take up a lot of room without offering too much. They need to be adjusted to, the walls being where they are, and I might change the position of some of the walls, I'm not sure. So I'm not 100% sold on the layout. Oh, I did do a brand new or mini version of the holographic table. I think this is a bit cuter. And again, it's because it doesn't take up too much room and makes the bridge look a bit more interesting. I'm not actually going to move any of these pieces over until they're considered printable and ready for export. So let's see if there's anything I've missed. I love the Chimera as a platform. It has a lot of potential, and this Odyssey expands upon it. I love the design of the original, and the Pathfinder is one of my favorites. I love the Pathfinder too, although it wasn't until Brian Jenkins painted it and did a couple of little extras that I really fell in love with it. Brian, you've got to send that ship over to me too at some point. Let's see. That said, I'm still very keen on some crazy alien ships in the future. And it seems like Rutger has been corrupted by that blasted Samouflage. I mean, alien designs are interesting to me. The problem is, what is an alien? Everyone's idea of it is completely different. Am I going to do flying saucers with grey aliens, and I'm going to do Asari or Turians or something like that? Is it going to be Star Wars style aliens where basically everyone has the same kind of ships, really they don't vary that much? Or Star Trek where every race has its own sort of version of things.
Start with Borg.
No. I don't want to assimilate that. So yeah, we're in the process of this. Let's see, we're at 3:30. Okay. The one thing I was looking to accomplish today is because it's a small thing, but I'm not in love with using these airlock doors for everything. On the outer doors, it kind of makes some sense that you could have doors that go like up and down. For the inner door, There's not really room for it, and this kind of thing actually does bother me a little bit more than it probably should. So ideally you would probably have a door that has a split down the middle there, because there's not really room for anything else. On the back side, the sides here, I do want more detail. Here I want some what's it called? Life support systems, I think would be appropriate for on this wall, because we do have a little corner here of dead space in the design. So yeah, one thing I was thinking of doing is redesigning this hangar door so that the door is either solid or opens to the sides. If it just opens to the sides, we can probably steal from Shuttle Alpha. Hey Dalton, how are things going, mate? I've completely forgotten that I need to talk to you about how things are going. Probably not the best thing for a Friday afternoon, now that I think about it. All right, so that's one thing we could do. Work on that door. I think really my main goal would be to take out this line and make the pattern on the door make sense. And if nothing else, you have a solid variant, right? The other thing I wanted to change was to make this just be flat. I don't think the pattern is necessary. The floor frame here does have a gap in it. So if nothing else, even if we don't change the other airlock doors, we need to change this one. Being crazy busy. All right, fair enough. It happens. So I also am not 100% in love with which wall this lift should be on, because to me it makes a little bit more sense that it should be like here against the wall. Both because, all right, it doesn't really help our situation with the door frame, which I already spoke about. But at the same time, we don't see this nice, lovely pattern on the wall. And we're kind of sitting in the same situation regardless. So one thing I have been considering, or rather an alternative option, is instead of having these two rails like we had on the Beowulf mezzanine lift, which is essentially what this is, we just have one rail in the center, and in that way, no matter which side it's on, we're not actually having issues with that door frame. So this might be on the good to have list, I'm not sure yet. Has anyone actually printed the mezzanine yet? I'm wondering. Tested that lift out? I don't think we test printed it. Bioships are a tough thing. There are very few that are actual logical, always too many spikes. Moya from Farscape is a top design in my opinion. Yeah, shout out to Farscape. That's a blast from the past. Aside from the part where, yeah, the last two seasons of Stargate became Farscape. Basically, the whole cast from Farscape made it to the cast of SG1. So yeah, the whole problem with if I did Aliens, you'd probably end up with some kind of designs that look more like Zentradi ships from the film, at least interior wise. But it is a hell of a lot of work having organic shapes, and I don't know if it makes sense for hard surface modeling. Certainly not at the skill level that we have. I think it would take too long. And then the other thing too is, it might look interesting to some people, but maybe not enough people like it. Because it's one thing to do human ships, because there's lots of games use human ships, but alien ships vary so much more, as do the technology levels with them. So all of these floor tiles here actually are printable. It's just a case of I'm rethinking if we want to, like for example, here we have a 2x4 tile, which makes more sense to print maybe than the original version, which was like here we have a 3, and then a 2.5, and another 2.5, and another 2.5. That's a lot of clips. That's a lot of uneven floors. So the less issues we have here, like this is going to be by default more stable because we've now got a lot more support in underneath because of these partitions. But even so, by just making one half and then a second half and then some kind of solution here that maybe divides this up into two sections as well, especially if we're using partitions that just sit on top, that is something I've got to think about if I want to make custom tiles or not. Because that's the other thing too. Here you can kind of see the tile collection. So there'll be a base tiles TNG. There'll be a new hanger tile set TNG, I think, by the end of things. And the as well as the crawl space TNG tile set. So if I didn't mention it before, I think the all-in we're setting to like $60. And if you want to just buy those additional add-ons, they're probably in like the $10 range, something like that. So whatever you're in to support us on, there should be something that you like, even if it's something small, or just by continuing to be on Tribe supports us heaps. Fargate, Starscape, interesting. I would also love some floor tiles that are the entire floor in one piece, like slightly larger ones. Yeah. Okay. Or you just mean printed all as one. See, the problem is I'm kind of reticent to print more than two tiles stacked. Like I could go for a cross, but the thing is, the wider that something is, the higher the chances are that it's going to curl. And the taller it is when it prints. So again, we've got to imagine that our build plate is here, and this is the flat part, right? And the Z is up and down. So if you have this as 4 inches, with just this being all that keeps it on the build plate, and again, it's just this sort of pattern on the outside, you'll note that all these open lock clip holes, these are not on the build plate. They're unsupported extrusions there. They print great when you've got it standing up like so, right? But the higher this stack gets, the higher the risk is that the adhesion is going to slip, and either you're going to get curling, and that curling eventually contributes to the part falling off your printer. Now, I know these days we have less issues than what we had 5 years ago with FDM machines. They've gotten a lot more reliable. The knowledge base is a lot more mainstream for how you can avoid some of these pitfalls. But again, you do have to design for people that are newcomers to the hobby, and this might be their first entry into either moving from resin, as we've had on the Discord recently, some of our newer Discord members saying, hey, I have a resin printer, can this still be printed on a resin printer? Technically, yes, but the resin costs for the material are almost to the point where you could just buy an entry-level FDM machine for the price of that resin. And not to mention the fact that the resin will look better, but it will be a lot more brittle, and if you drop it, yeah, you got a lot more resin you're going to have to print. So I don't feel like I'm being completely I'm not completely focused today. So I was talking about redoing this airlock door. God, how did I never notice that wasn't the right door for that? Or is it the right door? It feels a little bit loose, I think. I think these are meant to be more like airlock doors, and that makes more sense. And originally in the Chimera 2, because of this up and down opening, I believe it opened like I had that's why I had the offset doors, and now they're almost completely stacked. So I just want to make something that fits in there and doesn't look too out of the place. So let me put my money where my mouth is, and let's get this from a couple of angles and look at what we might want to do. So if I just color this in here, essentially to make this feel like it could either go up and down or side to side, not the sort of like parting in the middle, but a simpler door, I think we need to take out these lines and then just look at how the door frame looks after that. So since we have multiple copies of this door, I feel free to make some changes. And we're just going to start by going in and grabbing these lines. And maybe in the process I will read some of your comments. So just control deleting the vertices. And you can kind of see that these have snapped back down onto the flat. Just double checking that none of the vertices are actually sticking out. They're not. So we'll just do that again on the opposite side. And this is all about getting rid of that central line. Even if it's, you can kind of see the geometry is made for it, right? But this is now flat. So I'm thinking with this door, we're going to actually move this symbol down to here. Or maybe we'll have some kind of control on the door. Oh, that's interesting. It was the wrong color. And the other side's not even colored at all. So actually, speaking of that, you know what we'll do? We'll just, this has been designed to just mirror, so we'll not completely mirror. You kind of duplicate and then flip it over. This one, the main difference here you see is the airlock symbol has this black triangle and black triangle. If this was actually mirrored, the triangle would mirror as well. So really all I've done in the past is grab half the door, duplicate it, and then rotate it 180 degrees, like so. So it makes more sense in these scenarios, both to get all the coloring that we've already put on the mesh, and also to get it so that, you know, there's a slight asymmetry with the symbols at least. I'm thinking maybe we do a little window, that this becomes a window, and we make it slightly higher. And then the symbols are either underneath, or do we even need the symbols? I'm going to say yes, because it's an airlock and you want to be warned that it's an airlock, right? Let's see. The biggest challenge I find is making it playable by a human crew and thus miniatures, but still keeping an alien vibe. Yeah. I mean, you have no limit of your imaginations with alien creatures, that's for sure. I would say that the fact that you go towards non-bipedal humans is something that like should really be more in science fiction, but I don't think it's widely adopted in any games. If you look at Star Wars, if you look at Star Trek, it's basically a human with cosmetics. You know, Klingons and Andorians and Rhodians and Wookiees, they're all still guys in a suit. And that does work well in the same environment, where there's not a huge size difference. They all seemingly breathing a oxygen-nitrogen blend. Let's see. The Zidani are basically Ottoman Empire in space. If the Ottoman Empire was psychics, which they're not or weren't. Let's see. Certainly, Turkey is yeah. Let's see. Turkey. Look, you might have noticed that Turkey is a bit of a frustration at the moment for us in Sweden because we want to join NATO. But how you hold the Swedish government accountable for one idiot, well, two idiots actually. The guy that burned the Erdogan, I can't say his name, effigy in Stockholm, and the Danish guy that burnt the Koran. He's not even Swedish. He's got Swedish citizenship, but he's a Dane. Those are individual citizens, not the Swedish state. We just have, you know, this thing called freedom in our country, where, you know, we literally can't control what people say. And of course, we have 100% freedom of the press and guaranteed press independence, which is not something a lot of countries get. I believe they actually get public funding, but they get to be independent, or some degree of public funding anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alban, but...
In what I didn't really hear.
Oh, like the press, yeah.
Yeah, I think they do get a bit of funding actually. And they also have, what the fuck is it called? they have a specific status, security status.
Yeah, like it's against the law to basically remove freedom of the press in any way, or for the state to usurp the press, basically.
I mean, they have like these specific secure server halls, or whatever you call it, where papers can store information and stuff like that as well. That's protected by the state, I think.
There you go. So lots of stuff going on there. And I'm trying to figure out what on earth all these colors are. Okay, I'm getting focused on the colors instead of the door. So let's.
Colorful space.
Well, yeah. So what can we do? I think we're going to leave the pattern mostly as it is, but I want to maybe change this middle pattern. So essentially a window is going to be there. I kind of need a miniature, but I feel like all our miniatures in the scene are sitting down. So if they were standing up, let's pretend they were standing up, he'd be about here. So where is he looking if he's standing up at full height? I think these might be 32mm miniatures, the old ones. They do look a little bit big. Okay, so yeah, I probably want the window to be all the way up here. Thank you, Mr. Sensor Operator Guy. So yeah, sorry about bringing politics into the stream, but I feel like that needs to be said. Best option is to have both resin and FDM printers, interior high detail pieces in resin and miniatures, and large hull sections in FDM. I mean, that's ideal, but you're already at least $500 into the hobby at that point. Though mind you, you're at least, $250, $300 into it to be able to print one of my ships anyway. But yay, caught you live finally. Welcome the officer factory. I require more officers for my ships, but primarily crew. Danes. Those are your words, not mine, but yeah. At least Space Battleship Yamato 2199, you mean, has a reason for why the humanoids are similar to each other. I mean, it's the same in Star Trek, right, basically. The 16th century Ottomans and modern Turkey have very different politics, but if you discard the politics and just steal the design, look, and feel, you will get a very different style of starship. Okay, I see this is what your point was. Also, 7th century Indian architecture would make for a very different looking inspiration for spaceships. True that. Bangs on hatchway in frustration as dark cloaked figure menacingly approaches. Oh, is John here? Let's see. Lots of reasons for humanoids, I get that, but much was technologically necessary, a technological necessity for human actors. I think we can do much more creative options nowadays. It's your niche to fill. Yes, it is. And you may feel that. What I would be concerned about is appealing to a broad audience. I don't think that kind of change happens overnight, unfortunately. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer about it, but...
what do you call it?
A Debbie Downer.
Debbie Downer, okay.
As in, like, a person. It's the same like you say, Nigel, no friends. Mm-hmm. Debbie Downer is that lady that always is whinging.
Or something that start with the same initial letter?
Yes. It's based on that, yeah. All right. It's the same as like a Runk Robert. I'm not translating that. We would lose viewers. But yeah, it's a similar sort of rule. Okay, so I want to get this up there. I need to cut out my semiotic for airlock, which I'll now do, and I'm just using my cut tool. So essentially, I'm just going to move this aside for now. We have both our grid and our vertex snap on at the moment. And I'm trying to, the reason I'm kind of hesitant to make changes here is because I don't know if I want to keep these or not, or if I need to rearrange it. So what I might just do is I'm just going to grab, oh, I already had grabbed them. I'm just going to deselect some of these things I don't want. So now we just have this window in the section, the middle. I'm just going to see what happens if I grab this vertex and align it up here. That still feels like the window's too low. So I think we need to forget about this gap for the moment. So what I'm gonna completely deselect these parts, and this will look ugly for now, but you know, that's a part of the process. Got to be a little bit vulnerable. And move that up to like here. So yeah, we need to think about how we're going to rearrange this. I think honestly the best way to do this is we're actually going to remove the depression here. So essentially we're getting rid of this indentation that we've made in the past, and we're going to recreate it once we've reshaped that particular piece of geometry. And again, it's just going around control deleting any rogue areas. We're not going to worry about the coloring on the door for the time being. Really what I should probably do is just turn it all into a Lambert and recolor later maybe, but we'll leave it be. With these old geometries too, you never know if there's like some rogue n-gons or that sort of thing. So again, I'm just going to grab this and only select the parts that are pertinent. So get rid of these inner ones. Does that look right? Get rid of that maybe. So we're going to bring this up, and I might even bring this all the way up to the top here, because I suspect that's on the same angle. If I look at this in our wireframe mode, it looks like it's following the same angle, more or less. And then we're going to rearrange these other parts later, so or delete these other parts. That's also an option. So actually, I'm going to move this back down, and we're just going to delete this, that, and that. So maybe not the best. And the other thing I'm going to do is actually detach this. So I'm going to cut here so that this should be separate. And we can move it up there and see what we need to tackle. So this is probably from a time before I was using the grid at the scale I'm using it at. So there's a couple of old things. Yeah. So let's see. Yes, there's a reason in Star Trek there's like a progenitor race, yeah. Let's see. At least in an animation, you have more freedom to create unique clients like Titan AE or Treasure Planet. Yeah, I mean, the potential is there. It's just about like the interaction. And there are options to do unique alien things. My primary concern is not making enough money. And, you know, I don't like being so mercenary about it, but at the same time, it's like running businesses, that's some real shit. All right, so actually, if I move these points up so that we've got a straight line there, and we may as well do that here as well, we actually see a lot more alignment here. Although there is a central line there, but not one up there. It makes sense if we add back in a line there and there in order to fill this. Although we might be just adding a window. We'll see. By the way, guys, what did you think of Albin's Garou Bath? Did you love it? I'm going to move these in as well. And I think we'll just use from there to there, just to widen this frame a little. And actually, you can see there's a difference in frame size at the top. So it's quite small differences, really. And then we'll just, you know what, that entire line doesn't need to be there. And we'll just get this all straightened out. And we might, this additional line down here doesn't need to be there as well. Oh great, it changed the color. I love that. Oh, I just realized which texture it is. It is lamb gray. Yay, it matches. No, it doesn't. Damn. Oh well. We revert. So yeah, I've got fresh in my head kind of the doors from Alien Isolation. I think that's a real risk here that we look back to that. So maybe I think we need to get rid of this middle line altogether, and we do that by extending this pattern downwards. We do need to consider the fact that this kind of needs to be extended, and we'll extend it the same width as it was before by just changing it. This is a great trick if you're modeling in Maya or Blender, that you just move the pivot point to a different place where you know the distance. And that's all I was doing here. I'm just like, okay, I want this line that I'm about to thicken out to be this width. So I move the pivot point to the top of that and just draw it down to the next bit. And I know now that this is the exact same width. And this is a great way to keep symmetry. I like the Toad. Will the wings be modular enough to be used on other fighters? No. The Toad is very much its own thing. It's probably the least modular starfighter we've made. But at the same time, I kind of like it. It's an ugly duckling. Or a frog prince, if you'd like. So I think I'm just going to get cheeky here and see how this looks. If we ignore that and bring that right over here. And if I kind of like do an Alien Isolation style door, but what my memory has as one, it will probably end up looking different enough that I won't get sued by 20th Century Fox or rather Disney and Sega. I don't think it's a real issue, to be honest, but you never know. You never know. So I think we'll just grab this and maybe that's all right. I think that's all right. Yeah. We need it to be. Oh right, yeah. We need to do the indentation again. So probably if we just fill this in, we do need to rebuild this geometry because these are actually rectangles here. There's no vertex on this polygon to connect to this corner. So if I just delete those and like recreate the geometry, we're ensuring that we don't have n-gons and you know, we have less defects when we actually get to the point where we want to export. So I'm just going to go up there, make the adjustments. I don't know if this will be the final version. Oh shit, is it already 4 o'clock? Yeah. So I'm gonna get a move on. So I don't know if we'll add some kind of control here, but I think we'll increase. We'll move this a little bit further up to something like this, and we'll maybe move this down a little bit more. Maybe not that far. Maybe we'll place it manually with the intention of putting this symbol back in the middle. And maybe there's good enough. Maybe we want to just increase our grid just a little bit. So I do use the grid on occasion. And right now we've got it set to 25.4 units, 25.4 millimeters that is. The actual grid itself goes 3,000 units. So basically in every direction as far as we can see. And then subdivisions, it's eighths. So the eighths at the moment is 1/8 of an inch. So if I switch this to 16, I'm at a 16th of an inch. And we've just got something a little bit closer to that grid system. Changing the distance here, so we'll also come in here and just lift this up a tiny bit. And then of course we need to also manually move these. And I'm just manually selecting each one so I don't grab any of the geometry that's actually in that semiotic. And then we just go and delete the geometry behind this. Whoa, what just happened? That's very bizarre. It like reverted. Okay. Maya, what is wrong today? Are you possessed? She may well be. She may well be. Alright, I am actually going to move this down a little bit manually. And then again, we're just going to recreate the edges here. It'll probably be a bit off color. It actually looks reasonable. At the moment there is no middle geometry here, but I'm just going to add this in because it makes sense. So I'm just going to use my cut tool. And then again, we'll just fill this in. Probably going to be a different color, as I mentioned. We'll go back in at the end and sort of clean this up. So there we go. So we moved our symbols down. We might have some kind of control panel here in the end so that you just hit the door rather than the door frame. I'm not sure. Frog/Prince has someone been kissing the test prints. I don't know, but it did turn out better than I hoped. So there's that to be said. There's two different options here. One I see as being, we just turn this into a little... Oops, we need the snap on. A little window here. And then we actually keep this as a frame and go across there, or... No, I don't like that. Maybe we'll fill that in. Let's just fill it in and see how it looks. So I'll bring that in there, that in there. Let's just create some geometry, huh? So I'm creating some temporary geometry. This is what we do sometimes. Actually, no, that doesn't help. I'm going to take away instead of add. And then I'm going to bridge here. And then if we just add a division, we end up with two distinct polygons, and from there we can bridge again across. And basically when these thick lines turn into thin lines, we know that they're manifold. That is to say there are no gaps. And that's really what all this work is about. Reducing those gaps. I'm actually going to delete these, even though that's created an n-gon. We can fix that n-gon by just grabbing these. And again, for those not familiar with the vernacular, n-gon, n is equal to the number of sides, and it's assumed to be any polygon that has more than 4 sides. A polygon with 4 sides we call a quad, and then we have triangles if it is the smallest polygon possible. So we have that, and then we can fill all of this in. And I'm not too worried at the moment. We're just going to use the fill tool. So looking at what we've got pattern-wise, we could come down here or even up there. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure where I want to go with this. I'm going to move... I'm going to have a think about this. So yeah, we can have a window there. I think we might want to come all the way down to here and then up there. Yeah, let's do that. And maybe if we're lucky this is on a grid. It's not. Oh well. Let's see. You got to make sure the ship is watertight, right? Even if there's no water in space. Ben, a starship architect. That's. I mean, I've been introduced a couple of times as a spaceship designer, and I quickly have to correct, unless people think I work for like SpaceX or something, which would be cool, but way too much work for me. I'm way too lazy to work at SpaceX. Basically, I think we need to. This line is going to be too thick, so I'm going to cut there, and basically just move everything down so that really these lines should be like at this point. And we'll move that down, we'll move that down, move that down, and so on and so forth. I feel like maybe this isn't working all the way I wanted it to, but I'll clean it up. The important thing is we get the front face looking all right before we finish. And actually, you know what? This could be cheeky, but it might work. Let's move these down to here. And we're just going to run a line from here to there. And then, yes, let's do this. Let's just... I kind of want it to be there, but I'm gonna see how this looks. So we're gonna grab these. To make them point out, we'll use whatever. Let's see, lamb, dark gray. They're not the same color, but at least it's fairly even now. And then we're going to do our extrusion in. And the thing is, I'm going to have to guess how much this extrusion was, because I don't know. So we need to play with our offset. So let's just put in, that's a 0.7 offset there, and we can see that that straight up there is probably about twice as much as what we want. So if I put 0.3, that looks too thin. 0.4 looks like it might be all right. And one way we can check this is just to grab this and drag it down, and look at that. That is almost exact. It's not though, but for all intents and purposes, we're gonna make it be there. And then we just grab these again. We change our angle, and basically I'm gonna isolate this door again with those faces selected, and we're just going to move them in essentially, and then we'll grab the edges. We'll change these to the standard Lambert. Lambert being a certain kind of texture. I say that all the time, but it's like the default texture, and basically Lambert is a non-shiny object. So Lambert 1 is the default texture in Maya. I believe Blender has its own equivalent. So I don't know, this. Let's just do a quick smooth, so we fix our smoothing issues. I don't know if that's good or not. I really don't. I think I'm going to have to look at this a bit longer. Really what we probably want to do is mirror this sort of shape. Maybe by making this window a bit smaller. But that will have to happen off camera because it's Friday and I have things to do and a wife I don't wish to anger. So yeah, it's still accomplishing some of our, you know what, there's nothing wrong with a bunch of variants, okay? So we'll make this a variant. We'll make it into a proper door. We'll do a version with a window. Maybe we'll even have use this as a stretch goal, right? So that we can have a bunch of different door variations that are useful in almost all of our ships, because the same airlock has been used way back since the I think it's been used since like Transport Delta or something. So yeah, we're gonna have to leave things where they are. We're trying to get this printable again. It's on the 22nd. Check out the stream details for the link to where you can sign up for that campaign and get a free STL file of our shuttle pod. It's in the description. Please give us a like and subscribe. If you are watching this later and you're a second Dynasty fan, turn off the sound, let it run in the background. We're trying to get our channel approved for a partnership. We're about 500 hours off of 3,500. So if you guys can run the stream in the background with the sound turned off, it actually is going to help a lot. So in any case, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us. I really do appreciate you guys come to the chat. Sorry that I haven't focused on it as much. I'm just a little bit stressed at the moment. Yeah, I hope everyone has a great week, and I will see you guys